Have you ever wondered why some days feel like a battle from the moment you step outside your door, while others seem to flow with an unexplainable peace and strength? Could it be that the way you begin your day determines the way you walk through it? In today's video on Prayer Decode, I'm going to share a powerful 5-minute morning prayer to change the way I face every challenge, every unexpected moment, and every decision throughout the day. But here's the surprising part. It's not about asking God to remove the obstacles, but about letting Him prepare your heart before you even encounter them. Stay with me to the end, because I will share a personal experience where this very prayer turned an ordinary morning into a day of unexpected grace. And if you find this resonates with your heart, don't forget to click subscribe and tap the bell icon, so you never miss out on new prayers, reflections, and encouragement that help you start your days grounded in God's peace and strength. There was a season in my life when I would wake up, grab my phone, rush through the motions of the morning, and step outside my house feeling like I was prepared for the day ahead. But deep down, I knew something was off. I couldn't quite name it at first. It wasn't until life began throwing storms my way, unexpected disappointments, difficult conversations, days filled with heaviness, that I realized I had been stepping into the battlefield of the world completely uncovered, spiritually naked, unguarded by prayer. I thought the armor I wore was my knowledge, my experience, my plans. But I forgot. The armor God offers is something entirely different. I remember one particular morning when everything seemed to be going wrong. The car wouldn't start, my heart was heavy with anxiety, and my spirit felt restless. I paused in the driveway, feeling overwhelmed. And that's when the still small voice whispered into my spirit, "You forgot to invite me into your day." It wasn't a voice of condemnation. It was a gentle nudge from the Holy Spirit, reminding me that I had been trying to fight battles in my own strength, forgetting the power of covering my day in prayer. From that day forward, I made a simple decision that changed everything. Before I touched my phone, before I worried about tasks, before I let the world in, I would create space to invite God to go before me. I began by simply saying, "Lord, I can't do today without you. Go before me. Guide my words, my actions, my steps." And what I noticed wasn't that all the storms went away. The car still broke down. The hard days still came, but I was no longer walking into them alone or unarmed. There was a peace that settled over me like a warm blanket. The Bible tells us in Proverbs 3:5-6, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your paths." I realized I had been leaning on my own understanding for far too long. But when I paused and acknowledged Him first thing in the morning, my path felt clearer, even when the road was bumpy. Over the next few days, I committed to praying intentionally every morning, not just when I had time, not just when I remembered, but as the first act of the day. I crafted a short but powerful prayer, and I prayed it every morning for 7 days straight. And what I experienced wasn't just outer change, it was inner transformation. My reactions were calmer, my heart was steadier. My decisions became less about impulse and more about discernment. The power wasn't in the words themselves, but in the surrender, in placing God in His rightful position as the leader of my day. From that morning, when I surrendered my plans to God before stepping out of the house, something within me shifted. There was no lightning strike or sudden miracle to boast of, yet the stillness in my heart, the assurance that came from simply beginning my day in conversation with my Creator, was far more powerful than any outward change I could have witnessed. It became clear to me that prayer is not about reciting elaborate words or impressing God with spiritual eloquence. It is about posture, about coming before Him as His child, with honesty, need, and surrender. I noticed how my mornings began to feel less like a race and more like a sacred rhythm. By pausing, even for 5 intentional minutes, I gave God room to fill the gaps I could not see. I let Him speak into areas I didn't even realize I had closed off. And in those quiet exchanges, I was reminded of His faithfulness, His covering, His unchanging presence. Each morning, I would begin by acknowledging that this is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it, as Psalm 118:24 declares. This simple declaration reframed my mindset from the beginning. Instead of dragging yesterday's disappointments into the new day, I released them and stepped into the fresh mercy God promises us each morning. As Lamentations 3:22-23 assures us, the heaviness lifted because I chose to start with gratitude rather than grumbling. I would thank Him for breath, for life, for another chance to love, to serve, to walk in obedience. And then I would invite Him in. Lord, go before me, I would pray. Make the crooked path straight. Guard my mind from anxious thoughts. Guard my heart from offense. Guide my words that they would be seasoned with grace. Protect my family, my home, my comings and goings. Let me walk in your peace, no matter what comes. As I prayed these words each morning, I began noticing how my day seemed to align differently. Not that it was free of challenges, but my heart posture was steadier. The interruptions that once irritated me became opportunities to pause and extend grace. The unexpected detours turned into divine appointments. God was showing me that when I hand Him the first 5 minutes of my day, I am not losing time. I am gaining perspective, wisdom, and strength that far surpass the minutes. I think I'm saving by rushing ahead without Him. Jesus Himself modeled this rhythm. In Mark 1:35, we see that very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went to a solitary place where He prayed. If the Son of God needed to retreat and connect with the Father before facing the demands of the day, how much more do we? I began to see prayer not as an obligation, but as an invitation into intimacy with the one who holds my life in His hands. I found myself longing for those sacred 5 minutes, not as a checklist, but as a lifeline. Over those 7 days of committing to this simple morning prayer, I realized that it wasn't about the prayer itself changing my circumstances. It was about God changing me in the process. He softened areas of my heart that had grown calloused. He replaced my striving with surrender. He shifted my focus from what was lacking to who He is, and that changed everything. There was one morning, on the 5th day, I remember vividly. I woke up heavy, burdened by a situation at work that felt overwhelming. My flesh wanted to dive into worry, to rehearse all the worst-case scenarios, but I stopped. I breathed in deeply and whispered, Lord, today feels too much for me, but it is never too much for you. Go before me. Fight the battles I cannot see. Still my heart. And as I prayed those words, a calmness settled over me like a gentle rain. The problem didn't disappear, but my fear of it did. That day, God opened doors I had not expected. He sent people across my path who spoke words of encouragement that lifted my spirit. He reminded me, through the ordinary moments of that day, that He is in the details. The more I surrendered my mornings, the more I found myself walking in step with His Spirit throughout the rest of the day. And that, my friend, is where the real transformation happens. Prayer isn't a magic formula to make life easy. It's a daily invitation to walk closely with the God who strengthens us to face whatever comes. Isaiah 40-31 reminds us that those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. I found that when I gave God those first 5 minutes, He renewed me from the inside out. Even when the day was long, I didn't feel drained in the same way because I was drawing from His well, not my own empty reserves. After those 7 days, I knew I could never go back to the old way of rushing into the day without prayer. It became as essential to me as breathing, and I realized that this practice wasn't just for me. It was something I wanted to share with others, because I had seen firsthand how those few moments of intentional prayer could shift everything. If you feel like your days have been chaotic, if you've been walking out the door feeling spiritually exposed and emotionally drained, I want to encourage you to try this for yourself. Set aside just 5 minutes before you leave the house. Pray with honesty. Pray with expectation. Pray with the confidence that God hears you and goes before you. And as I close this reflection, let me leave you with the lesson that became etched in my heart through this journey. When we make room for God first, He fills our days with His presence, His peace, and His power. The outcome isn't always what we expect, but the transformation within us is undeniable. We step into the day not in fear, but in faith. Not in our strength, but in His. Not grasping for control, but resting in trust. That, dear friend, is the greatest shift of all. And if you feel stirred to continue growing in this journey of prayer, I invite you to stay connected with me here on Prayer Decode, where we unravel the beauty, the simplicity, and the power of everyday prayers that draw us closer to the heart of God. As you've seen, the real transformation doesn't always happen around us. It begins within us when we start our day with prayer. I hope this 5-minute morning prayer becomes not just a routine, but a sacred habit that fills your day with peace, direction, and the quiet assurance that God is already ahead of you, preparing the way. If this prayer has touched you today, I would love to hear about it in the comments. And remember, we have so many more powerful prayers and faith reflections waiting for you right here on Prayer Decode. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, so together we can continue uncovering the beauty of a life anchored in daily prayer. Until next time, may your mornings be filled with His presence and your steps guided by His grace.